Welcome back to the TT Circuit Assen. We're moments away from race 2 of the weekend for Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux. And we come out of Saturday's race with, once again, a very much changed championship complexion. Robin Knudsen, who came into Hungary a few weeks ago as the points leader, left Hungary 4th in the points. Well, he was our race winner yesterday. That's bumped him all the way back up to P2 in the points classification. Jaap van Lagen, though, still the championship leader by 8 points. Just 1 win so far, but 5 podiums total. His consistency has been very strong. He finished 2nd to Knudsen yesterday. Let's see what happens today. I did rather think that this had become a 4-horse race for the championship between Van Lagen, Knudsen, Niels Langeveld and Sam Yongyan. However, a good race yesterday for Nick Ho. 3rd position in the race ultimately has brought him just 32 points away from the championship lead, and that's not necessarily a small margin, but it is certainly a margin that can be surmounted over the 5 races that remain, including the one we're lining up here for today. Now, Nick Ho struggled yesterday for pace in the race. His car looked a little bit squirrely underneath him. It was not quite as compliant as I think he would have liked it to be. But he's got a golden opportunity here because he is the driver starting on pole position. The number 98 machine will be lining up from the front of the grid. We're going to need to keep an eye on that young man for PG Motorsport. There you see the black, white and yellow car. The driver who finished 14th last season in Carrera Cup Benelux has taken a big step forward so far this season. And a race win at this juncture would be very, very helpful indeed. His best finish of the year so far, P2 in Spa in the 2nd race of the season, although he did score full championship points for that. As you can see, just over 20 degrees Celsius here with 69% humidity. Pretty much perfect racing weather, I'd suggest, for Assen at this time of year. We are here at one of the busiest weekends of the season in Dutch four-wheeled motorsport, and that is the Jax Racing Day, where there's always a festival feel to proceedings. There's always lots to see and do. Beyond a full race program as well, there's always exciting demos and things of that nature. This year has been no exception. The fans have been very keenly watching the action from Carrera Cup Benelux this weekend. You can see there the fans in their droves making their way up onto the main grandstand here, overlooking the start-finish straight here at Assen. Of course, this circuit has been through so many geysers over the years. It's shrunk in length. It's been pretty extensively reconfigured. I think to my understanding, the only thing that is exactly where it used to be when the circuit opened, the start-finish line. Everything else has moved at least somewhat over the course of Assen's storied history in motorsport. As you can see, 2 lights on top of the gantry. We're not far away from going racing. Nick Ho will start from pole position on the standing start after this formation lap. Robin Knudsen, yesterday's winner, looking to go 2 from 2 here. The Swede, let's see what he can do. Jaap van Lagen on the 3rd row of the grid. I missed out the 2nd row there. 2nd row is Porter Ruiz and Raudonis. Then it's Jaap van Lagen and Sam Yongyan. Langeveld and Milan Marchak on row 4, Hjelte Hoefner on Henri Tuamala on row 5. Then it's Nikola Milkovic in 11th, Jules Grau in 12th, Alexander Reimann in 13th, Mace Muller in 14th position. Then it's Thomas Kangro in the 48 alongside Jani Kakala, the 39, Alexandra Vateva in 17th, and Max Schlickenmeyer rounding out the 18 car order. Hjelte Hoefner was strong yesterday. That's a name we last heard at Spa-Francorchamps for the season opener. Guest driver once again for this weekend and had a good showing, all things considered. A few drivers that will want to move up through the field for sure. Niels Langeveld, 7th on the grid. this grid set by the second best times from qualifying yesterday. Langeveld would like to get himself onto the podium today, if at all possible, but he's got a steep curve to do that, not just because he's 7th, but also because 5th and 6th are 2 of his championship rivals, Jaap van Lagen, the current championship leader, and Sam Yongyan alongside. Alexander Ryman yesterday came from towards the rear of the field and managed to get himself well into the top 10, eventually placing that number 47 car into 8th position. And I'm expecting him to try and charge through the order again, starting 13th on the grid today. So coming into today's race, Jaap van Lagen has 122 points under his belt. Robin Knudsen on 114, Langeveld 109, Sam Yongyan 103, and our pole sitter, Nick Ho, has 90 points to his name. In the rookie standings, Milan Marczak is the current points leader, 149 points for him. Frank Porte Ruiz on 136, looking to bounce back today from the retirement in race 2 at Hungary, just 13 points away from the rookie standings lead. Gilles Grau continues to lead in the Pro-Am classification. 3 wins out of the last 4 races in Pro-Am for Gilles Grau. So can Nick Ho find a bit more race pace than he had on Saturday? The car just seemed to be struggling on turn-in, particularly. In the mid-corner, it just didn't seem to want to hook up as well as some of the cars around him. Have they rectified that? Have they solved that? Or is he going to be in for a race where he's perpetually elbows out? The pole position, a much vaunted place to be, of course. It's a fairly short run down to Harbach to the first corner. If you can lead through that technical first sector, you should be able to retain the lead for a little while there. Thousands upon thousands of fans looking down at this field of Porsche 992 GT3 Cup machinery as it pulls up into position. Exciting times for the Carrera Cup global community. We've seen the 992.2, which is coming to Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux in 2027. But the sound, the speed, and the sight of these 992.1s is incredible. Let's fire them into life here at Assen. We're underway and racing, and it's a good start, a very good start from Robin Knudsen. He is into the early race lead from the inside line on the front row of the grid. Nick Ho has been pushed out wide there quite firmly, as has Jaap van Lagen. Jaap van Lagen was the one who was on the extreme outers of the circuit there, but it's Knudsen that leads the way. Frank Porte Ruiz is up to 2nd place. Then it's Ho in 3rd position. Sam Yongyan trying to go around the outside there for 4th or 5th position. Everyone cleanly through the first few corners, but it's Knudsen home free at the front. And based on what we saw yesterday, that could be a fatal error from everybody else to let the Swede disappear up the road. Very, very committed. A little bit over-committed from Domas Rodenis. Perhaps unsurprising because he didn't get to do more than 1 lap yesterday. A puncture on the first lap damaged the car, and that was the end of his day. Today, though, he wants more. As we see there, the 56 car in a spin, the Q1 track racing machine of Alexandra Vateva. She had a spin yesterday as well. It's not been the best of weekends there, as we see this huge pack of cars fighting for space. They're almost 3 wide there in the back of shots, as we see Nick Ho still side by side with Domas Rodenis, who leans rather rudely on the number 98. Oh, surely they're not going to make it work through here. Breathe in, everybody. Oh, there was contact, and one in a spin there didn't quite catch the number as it wildly spun out of sight. We'll see it on the timing screen as we continue to watch there. Sam Yongyan side by side. Roudiness was the car that looped around by the looks of it. Domas Raudanis into the tyre wall. There was 2 cars involved. The 96 of Milan Marczak. I didn't think it was a car quite as white as that. And indeed, the 96 has had a moment. Full course yellow, unsurprisingly. I think there may have been 2 separate incidents going on there because Raudanis, he's ended up off the circuit. Milan Marczak has ended up off the circuit. Alexandra Vateva has continued on. She's just crossed the line in 16th. Big lose for Hjelte Höfner, down to 15th at the end of the first lap. Let's run through the order. It is Robin Knutsen in the lead, then it's Porte Ruiz and Nick Ho in 3rd place. Jaap van Lagen in 4th place. And then Sam Yongyan in P5. As we see Milan Marczak trudging away, and that's going to cost him big time in the rookie standings, with Porte Ruiz comfortably leading the rookie class in 2nd overall. Polish racer is not going to be happy. So Nick Ho 3rd, Jaap van Lagen, Sam Yongyan, Niels Langeveld in 6th. So all of the championship contenders appear to be still running cleanly. The clock being stopped here. Red flags out on the circuit, and we're going to get a look back here at the start of the race as Knutsen absolutely aced the getaway. And Porte Ruiz followed suit as well. Both of them blasting past Nick Ho, who then ended up being sandwiched there with Jaap van Lagen on his outside. We're clean through those opening few corners. The 56 there towards the back of the field. Alexandra Vateva, of course, we saw her end up off the track, and you could see there everyone fighting for space, using the dirt. Domas Raudanis was really trying to grab that 3rd place away from Nick Ho on the first lap, using all the track and quite a bit more. And Raudanis was not giving up without a fight. Jaap van Lagen trying to go around the outside of Raudanis there as well, and we're going to get a look now at exactly what happened. Okay, yeah, so Marczak stepping out wide there, and that's what sent the number 5 of Raudanis around. And good to see him out of the car. The red flags were triggered, of course, and we already saw the 96 driver out, but we have now seen Domas Raudanis on his own 2 feet as well. That's great to see, especially after an impact that sizable. The car shot to the right of picture so quickly that I didn't fully register it, vanishing out of shot at the time. Two cars missing then. There is a bulletin on the timing screen, which is pertinent. Original starting positions. Go to grid. Who does that help? Nick Ho. Nick Ho gets a second opportunity to take this start from the race lead. He won't say no to that. So the 98 driver back on pole position for when we get this race underway again. They will do a formation lap once more once we're back to green flag. Right now, the time on the clock has been reset to 30 minutes, as is often customary with a first lap incident that causes a red flag. The race is effectively fully reset. That's why we've gone back to grid positions, and that's why the clock has reset. So we'll see how long this is going to take. Of course, there's also the question mark of how disturbed those barriers are after the number 5 car was sent firing towards them. Of course, you have to put those barriers back into a place that the race control are satisfied with, because if someone else hits the same place, they need the same luxury of a fully formed tyre barrier. Team GP Elite car of Domas Rodnis then will be going no further on this occasion, but we're very glad to have seen him out of his car. We've touched on the rookies, the Pro-Ams, and the overall standings. Of course, it is worth mentioning as well the team standings, where Team Raceart is currently top of the tree by 39 points over Red Ant Racing. The Team Raceart, of course, a famed team here in Carrera Cup Benelux. Yes, they've done plenty of winning, but all across Benelux region, motorsport and beyond, Team Raceart have made a name for themselves. As well as Carrera Cup Benelux, one of their other happy hunting grounds was Supercar Challenge, which also join us this weekend on the bill here at the Jacks Racing Day. Low loader ready to pick up the number 96 of Milan Markjak. Markjak, of course, took advantage of the DNF for Porte Ruiz at Hungary to move into the rookie class lead. I don't think that's going to be retained today, the lead in the rookie championship, unless Porte Ruiz has a drama. Markjak, in his first season with us here in Carrera Cup Benelux, he started off with 2 rookie class wins in 2 races at Spa-Francorchamps. Really made his mark early doors. His best overall finish so far this year, 4th position. And it's kind of impressive to remember, given he's been so busy this year, but it is still Milan Markjak's first season in car racing. He started the year in Porsche Sprint Challenge Southern Europe. He's been doing Carrera Cup Benelux since then, but still his first season. It's a matter of months that he's been driving cars, and I'm sure the best is yet to come for Milan Markjak. Of course, Domas Rodnis, a driver with a bit more experience, the other party in that collision. Before coming to us in Carrera Cup Benelux, he was racing in the Baltics and having a great sequence of race wins and titles. The Lithuanian racer. Some really interesting and diverse racing CVs on this grid, and of course none of them are quite as long as the 69 car, Jaap van Lagen, the points leader. It makes me feel incredibly old, and I'm sure it doesn't make him feel sprightly either when I say he's 48 now. But he's lost absolutely none of his pace. Started off in Formula Ford 1600s in car racing, and made his way up to, well, for the modern day audience, let's say Formula 2 level machinery. He's been to Le Mans, has raced the World Touring Car Championship, and has been one of those Porsche Carrera Cup regulars, one of those recurring characters in the Porsche Carrera Cup universe for well over 20 years at this point, or approaching 20 years at this point. A Porsche Super Cup race winner, Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland race winner, of course, most recently at Hungary, a Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux race winner. He was a part of the fabulous event in 2011, the Porsche Carrera World Cup, when dozens upon dozens of the very best Porsche Cup competitors went head-to-head at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. That was back, of course, in the days of the Porsche 9 at 9 7.2. And we've come a long way since then. The 992 Cup car, so impressive. 510 horsepower. An absolutely fabulous chassis underneath it. And of course, we saw the 992.2 getting revealed ahead of its debut next year in Porsche Mobil 1 Super Cup and a few other series. With a bit more power, a bit more downforce. Those gradual refinements that we get year on year from any Porsche product. And we're excited to welcome that car into Carrera Cup Benelux come 2027. Everyone's doors open then. No reason to cook yourself while we wait for this red flag to pass by. For Nico, he will have a second bite of the cherry, as it were, as the pole sitter once again. He'll be looking for a better start than the one he had earlier on. It was not a bad start, but he did allow Knutsen through, and then Frank Porter Ruiz saw an open door and decided to go through it as well. I think for Nico, he really wants to finish a race first on the road this season. He did score full championship points, a full haul of 25 points at Spa in the second race of the season. But he did finish that race behind Bertrand Baguette, and let's face it, yes, he got the full points, but there was another car in front of him through the windscreen, and Nick will love the opportunity to cross the line first here today in front of this big crowd at the Jacks Racing Day. The Gerrit Timmer Tribune, about as full as it gets for any weekend besides the Assen MotoGP round, the TT. And when something happens on track, you can audibly hear the reaction from the stands here on this weekend. It is a great festival of all things motor racing, Dutch and beyond. And certainly the Carrera Cup Benelux has taken residency on this weekend over recent seasons. Of course, it's our one visit to Assen this year. We're not done with the Netherlands, though, because the season will be concluding at Zandvoort, where we already visited, of course, earlier in the year. And before we get there, we have the trip to Zolder in September. Two races in September, or two events in September to conclude the season for the Carrera Cup Benelux teams. A very busy 9th month of the year. Of course, a few of these teams and a number of these drivers will be at Zolder before the Carrera Cup Benelux round. The 24 hours of Zolder is coming up quickly. And a great number of these teams running 992 Cup cars in that race as well. And in many cases, picking from their Carrera Cup Benelux lineup to form the team. It is really the kind of peak of the season in this region for motor racing right now. The major events are happening, the big time feel at this time of year. You see Robin Knutsen there. He'll be shutting his eyes and envisioning the start that he had and thinking to himself, right, I need to do that again. Only had one race win coming into this weekend, and that was the very first race of the season. Of course, he now has two to his name after, quite frankly, dominating race one of the weekend yesterday here at Assen. It is his second season with us in Carrera Cup Benelux, although last year he was only on a part-time schedule. He still managed to take 4 podiums, even on a part-time basis. And one of his secret weapons is Larry Tenforder. Larry Tenforder, who swept the weekend here last year as a guest driver, is a brain that Knutsen is able to pick on a regular basis down there in that NGT Racing garage. And given his level of success in Carrera Cup racing, I don't think that's a bad coach to have, if you will. Knutsen second in the points coming into today, just 8 points back from Jaap van Lagen, and he would be closer, if not leading the championship. Of course, if it wasn't for that collision, what might go down as the most dramatic point in the season on Sunday in Hungary. Knutsen and van Lagen were side by side, running towards the second corner of the lap. And unfortunately, as they exited turn 2, there was not room given to Knutsen by van Lagen. That was the way that race control saw it. He was given a drive-through penalty for his role in the collision. Knutsen ended up in the wall and van Lagen ended up 11th, and that really closed up the standings heading into this weekend here at Assen. You can see there the Marshall crew, the circuit crew working hard here to get those tyre barriers back into place at a corner like the Ramschuk Bend. It's absolutely mandatory to make sure those tyre barriers are back in place. The apex speed for that corner must be in excess of 130 miles an hour, 210, 220 Ks. And you absolutely need a tyre wall that's in place properly. Shout out to the boys down at CP Motorsport. They're there this weekend in a separate grid, and they've picked themselves a rather good grandstand, haven't they? Adapt and conquer. Anything can be a grandstand if you raise it high enough. Inside the cockpit there of the snatch vehicle. Hello to that gentleman. He's not involved with the process of getting the tyre stack into place. I thought that might have been a tight view there of the process ongoing, but that was somewhere else around the circuit. No updated... there is an update on the timing screen vis-a-vis race distance. The clock is now showing 26 minutes for when we return to racing, so they're going to slightly shorten the distance. Of course, that makes sense. I've already alluded to quite how busy the schedule of racing is at Jack's Racing Day typically. And they need to make sure everyone gets their track time. But should we have 26 minutes of racing, that's still going to be plenty to see some excitement unfold. We did look there like the digger was driving away, and we have just had a confirmation that it's 5 minutes until the start of the formation lap. So we're not far away here from going back to racing conditions. And if this pilot wants to land their helicopter and see the racing, they need to find a clear space to land now, because it's not going to be long before we get this one back underway. They're just getting those conveyor belts back into place, having reorganized the tyre stacks here. Confirmation then that we will be getting back to racing action very shortly indeed. Diligent work here from the marshals at the TT Circuit Assen. We thank them for their efforts. We thank everyone at the TT Circuit Assen for the safety of this circuit. We Can't really understate how big of an impact that was for Dormas Roudness. I think he had the wind knocked out of him a little bit there. It took him a while to get out of the car, but we saw him walk away under his own steam. And that's a testament to the TT Circuit Assen in the current day. A leading facility in motorsport across Europe. As I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, it's been through its fair share of configuration changes over the years. I can just about remember the time before the most recent reconfiguration, but still a great circuit in this era. And clearly a photographer's favourite as well. I do like this tendency for camera people during a red flag. They go from filming cars to filming each other and seeing if their friends can clock it. It's a fun time. Of course, a word must be given to the social team. Hello, my friend. The social team in Carrera Cup Benelux, because we've had some really amazing numbers on some of our platforms this year through Indonesian aura farming and other manners as well. But the social team here in Carrera Cup Benelux do a great job of adding some audience and creating appeal to this series. And shout out to the social media admin, who I'm sure is watching along with the fans as well, as we eagerly await the start of this race. A good race will get you on the edge of your seat, but so will the wait for a good race. And we are less than 3 minutes away from the formation lap rolling here. Not a bad day to be up on the spectator banks. The main grandstand is great. It's a little bit full, though. Maybe the spectator bank is the way forward. Enjoy an afternoon in the sun. Fans staying trackside. They saw a great race with Carrera Cup Benelux yesterday, and they're going nowhere. Feet and other parts planted in the seat, ready for us to go racing. 2 lights above the gantry. We're not far away. 1 minute until the start of the formation lap now. Most of the personnel ushered away from their cars and their drivers. And again, what about this for Nico? Quite the second chance. That first start did not go to plan, did not work out as he would have intended. But circumstances well beyond his control, circumstances going on beyond the remits of his car, have given him this second opportunity. Of course, he was scrapping with Dormas Roudness at the time, just before the red, but certainly wouldn't have anticipated this, but he'll take the opportunity with both hands. Nico leads them away for a second time on the formation lap. Knutson second, Porte Ruiz third. He'll be looking to get another really strong start. Porte Ruiz snuck in there behind Knutson and moved into an early second place, and for Porte Ruiz, he wants to minimise the effects of his anguish in Hungary. And I think also he'd like to go one better. Of course, he finished second in Hungary. That was his best finish of the season. He had an opportunity potentially to win the race in race 2 at the Hungaroring, and then, unfortunately, a collision with Alexander Ryman put paid to that. And if Porte Ruiz, starting there from the second row, can get another good start, then maybe today is the day where the rookie class competitor can leave his mark on the overall. classification with his first win in Carrera Cup Benelux. The Andorran racer would adore that, but he's got quite the competitors ahead of him in the form of Nick Ho and Robin Knudsen. For Nick, this win, if he can get the win, it would re-establish him in that championship order. As I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, 32 points back, and I did rather think this had become a 4-horse race at the front, but if Nick gets a win today, puts more points on his board, and he can head into the final 2 events with the potential to fight for the title. For Jaap van Lagen, it's going to be critical that he moves forward, I feel. For him, good results, consistent results, I think is what will win him this championship. Some of the younger, more leery drivers around him will have the highs and lows, and if Jaap van Lagen can be metronomic and a regular visitor to the podium, then that will work in his favour. The cars are returning to the main straight. Of course, we have a couple of gaps on the grid. Thomas Rodnes was set to start from 4th position. He will not be doing so. And Milan Marczak, who was set to start from row 4 on the inside in 8th place, he is also not present. So 16 cars of the originally scheduled 18 have pulled into position. And for the second time today, we're attempting race 2 at the weekend in Carrera Cup Benelux. 5 lights once again, a reduced race distance of 26 minutes, and it's a much better start from Nick Ho. This time he is going to lead into the first corner, and Robin Knudsen has had a shocker. This happened to him in Hungary as well. He's dropped down to 4th position. That is not the start that he would have wanted. It's Nick Ho in the lead. It's Frank Porter Ruiz right on his tail, and in 3rd place it's Jaap van Lagen. Van Lagen has had a very good start. Knudsen has had the polar opposite of the start he was treated to earlier on. Well, all change then. A completely different race complexion put to our presentation in the first few corners. This time Nick Ho has retained the lead, but he locks up there, and everyone really taking liberties with the track limits. And they've got to be careful about that. There were track limits penalties dished out on Saturday, but Nick Ho retains the lead for now, locked up into the corner. And that under rotation played a part in sending him wide through the Ruskenhoek bend. Porter Ruiz seemingly shortcutted it, while Nick Ho did much the same. So it's Ho from Ruiz, from Van Lagen, from Knudsen in 4th position. A disastrous start. He will be ruining the fact that the red flags came out, Robin Knudsen. As he was home free in the lead, and we've already seen this weekend that Knudsen doesn't need a second invitation to drive away from the field. It felt like he was doing much the same, but now he finds himself in 4th place, but more importantly, right behind the championship leader, Jaap van Lagen. And for Van Lagen, this is perfect. His 3 closest contenders in the championship are now all behind him. However, to make any more forward progress, he has to get past the fiery young Andorran, Frank Porter Ruiz. There's yellow flags, I think, around turn 3, and it's because we have a car stopped. Is that the number 23? Yes, it is. Henry Tuamala has come to a halt, and the hazard lights and the general positioning of that car makes me think that it has ground to a halt, to a permanent end here, unless, well, there we go. He can get the car rolling. The Alistara driving experience-backed machine of Tuamala is rolling, but only barely. I suspect he's going to try and get to the pit lane. Let's hope he makes it that far. We get a look back at start number 2, and it just was a disaster for Knudsen. As if he was almost even in the wrong gear. I don't think that's really what happened, but it was almost like a second gear launch, the way he fell back through the field. Was in danger of losing out to Yongyan as well. But managed to retain 4th place at least, has given himself an uphill battle. Still some dust being kicked up on the first lap, but mercifully a little less drama towards the back of the field. And there you see Porter Ruiz cutting the first apex and Nick Ho cutting the second apex there at the chicane. And I suppose 2 lefts make a right or something like that. 2 wrongs make a right. Oh no, the tyre stack has gone again. It made it to the last lap yesterday. It's made it to about lap 3 today. Well, we might be able to tell who's responsible for that with a chunk out of someone's bumper, but for now, we continue on with Nick Ho in the race lead, and again... is Nick Ho's bumper in one piece? Yeah, I think it is. I thought it might have even been our leader for a minute, but he won't thank me for mentioning this again, but of course, it is worth noting that race pace was not with him yesterday. As we see Tuamala running at full speed, so hopefully that car is going to stay underneath him, running 3rd in the Pro-Am class at the back of the field and be looking to stay out of trouble. But Nick Ho's race pace was inconsistent yesterday. He seemed to be struggling. I'm sure the team will have worked on something to get that car lively underneath him again at PG Motorsport. We're going to get a replay here, are we, of the responsible party. It was Frank Porter Ruiz who is responsible. He's got Michelin tread on his hands for taking down that tyre stack. No further action in regard to the race start, so they've had a little look at the start of the race and they've said, nope, all above board, good job everybody. Nick Ho with the fastest lap of the race last time by, so he is setting the pace out there. Car certainly looking more compliant underneath him today from what we've seen so far. Porter Ruiz in 2nd position. Van Lagen, Knudsen, Yongyan and Langeveld your top 6. And another driver that benefits from the race restarting is Hjelte Höfner, who's just behind the number 10 here, going through shot. Höfner had dropped all the way down to 15th place at the end of lap number 1. But with the redo of the race start, he gets to make his way back into the top 10 and now challenging Niels Langeveld. Langeveld under immense pressure. You see them using that grass on the inside of the first apex of the final chicane. And Jaap van Lagen looking very racy on the back of Frank Porter Ruiz. I think Porter Ruiz is the man in the most danger here. With Van Lagen, with Knudsen, both right on his tailpipe. Langeveld, granted, under pressure from Hjelte Höfner as well, but the man doing the most eye contact with his wing mirrors is certainly Frank Porter Ruiz. He's losing time to Nick Ho, who's the only driver out there at the moment in the 1-minute 30s, a 39.718. Everyone else is lapping in the 1-minute 40s or the 1-minute 41s. So Nick Ho is taking advantage of this battle for second place and driving away from it. Meanwhile, Frank Porter Ruiz is going to be having to focus on what's going on with Van Lagen behind him. Jaap van Lagen will take an opportunity. If it's presented, he will be right there in the position to take hold of second place if Frank Porter Ruiz presents even half an opportunity. And of course, if Van Lagen manages to break the dam, then Knudsen won't be far behind either. Porter Ruiz, I think, obviously racing in the rookie standings this year primarily, but he'll fancy overall podiums, and looking back at this first season in Carrera Cup Benelux and thinking, right, I've done a good job here. I've been a busy boy racing as well on a guest basis in Mobil 1 Super Cup. Quickly accumulating his experience, having graduated from single-seaters at the start of the year. Yeah, Van Lagen. Right there behind him in that number 69 car. Of course, Porter Ruiz for Q1 Track Racing, Van Lagen for Team Race Art. And then it's NGT Racing's Robin Knudsen behind them both, with the CG Motorsport car or PG Motorsport car, I should say, at the front of the field. It is 4 teams in the top 4 right now, highlighting just how many competitive Porsche Carrera Cup teams hail from this region. It is quite the hotbed for GT racing teams. The Benelux region, certainly in my living memory, has always been a lively ground when it comes to GT racing, both spec and otherwise. Carrera Cup Benelux has been a popular place for all the top Porsche teams to go head-to-head, and indeed the top Porsche drivers, and that's what we're seeing here. Drivers new and experienced. Knudsen now a bit closer to the rear of the number 69. Van Lagen trying to focus forward, but it doesn't help that Robin Knudsen is trying to send a message in Braille on his rear bumper. There was a little bit of a tap there from Knudsen to Van Lagen as they went through the Struben bend, and well, again, remembering Hungary, a little bit of contact might be considered no harm, no foul, but at least one party in this scrap. Look at Nick Ho's advantage. It was 2.6 seconds at the line last time. Knudsen looking racy here behind Jaap Van Lagen. He can get a good run here out of Duikersloot, then maybe he can make it work. They're flat out here through Moivenmeer, Hurgeheide, and then they have to take the brave pills before launching the car leftward into Ramschuk. Such a fabulous sequence at the end of this lap. High speed, even the chicane is pretty fast. You get the feeling that if you're not careful, if you really miss your braking point, you're going to end up in the barrier head on. It's such a fast section, that last sector of the lap. And the Geert Timmer Bot is one of the best overtaking zones on the circuit. We've seen plenty of grandstand finishes, concluding with a lunge in the final chicane, and might we see that again today? I said it yesterday. As the minutes tick down, as the time begins to elapse, they're going to get a little bit more desperate. And here's Knudsen with that love tap to Jaap Van Lagen. Knudsen's going to want a podium today, at the bare minimum, with a front row start. And of course, with the unique circumstances of leading the first attempt at a race, he's going to feel aggrieved with 4th position. He goes to the outside here, going through the Bolt corner, and goodness me, Van Lagen gave him very little space once again, and Knudsen did a good job to avoid contact there between the two of them. Great battling between the two once again. Knutsen's had a good run there out of Duikersloot, but he's not going to be close enough for a move through Ramshoek. Only the very bravest moves can be made there. Knutsen certainly, I think, getting feisty. And of course, every time he tries to make an overtake, every time he forces Jaap van Lagen to defend, it allows Frank Porter-Ruiz to drive away, but it also brings Sam Jongjan and indeed Niels Langeveld and Höfner back into the battle for third place. It's looking like a 5-car scrap at this point, and Jaap van Lagen won't thank his Swedish amigo for that. There you see that 5-car train. Of course, for Höfner in the 919 car, he is a guest driver. He is invisible in the points table, but he will all the same like to get himself a top 5 finish at the very least here. His best finish so far this season in his 2 rounds with us was yesterday, 7th place, which is where he is once again. So you want to better himself if at all possible. Managed to get an 8th position in the first race of the season at Spa-Francorchamps. Porter-Ruiz, how's he matching up for lap time versus Nick Ho? We haven't seen much of Nick recently. Frank Porter-Ruiz did just set his best lap last time by a 39.6. And that's in no small part, of course, thanks to the fact that he's not got Van Lagen right on his bumper. But this time by it was only a 39.9 as Jongjan there, massive lockup. He runs it very wide indeed, keeps his foot in it. He might be able to get away with that once, but if he keeps doing that, he will get in trouble. I don't think he particularly gained an advantage, though. Jongjan now has Langeveld behind him. And in fact, Langeveld has just received a warning flag for disrespecting the track limits. It was Jongjan that went straight on effectively there at the first corner. Just to circle back to Nick Ho briefly, he's getting quicker at the front of the field, a 39.477 last time through. Half a second faster than Porter-Ruiz. Great guns from Nick Ho in this race. He scored a 4 haul of points at Spa, didn't take the flag first. I said already in today's broadcast, I'm sure he wants that opportunity to cross the line first, and you'd be hard-pressed to bet against him now. Hypnotic sequence of corners there in the final sector, watching race cars get hustled quickly through Bergheide. And then Ramshoek is just a delight. Nick Ho, 4.1 seconds clear. He's doing what Robin Knutsen did yesterday, allowing everybody else to have their battles, have their fun. He will quite gladly walk away to glory. But he's still got over 8 minutes left to run. It's quite clear to me that PG Motorsport unlocked something in the car overnight, because it's a markedly different looking race car than what he had 24 hours ago. Perhaps he was just over pushing it, but it certainly looked like he was in a battle with the car yesterday, and today it's looking a lot more harmonious. They're all singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were, today. Last time by, Jaap van Lagen set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:39.390. And Porte Ruiz was again off the pace, a 39.7. Van Lagen and the rest of that train has caught back up to Frank Porte Ruiz, who does appear to be struggling. He's been a few tenths off his best in the last 2 laps. As Nick Coe drives on in the lead, I get the feeling Porte Ruiz is going to have a much harder time of things for second place. There's Van Lagen right on the Andorran's tail. Knutsen in 4th place, Yongyan in 5th. The order has not changed, but Jaap Van Lagen's priorities have, because he's no longer having to defend from Knutsen, but he does have the opportunity here, a tantalising opportunity at that, to move up into second place. And of course, if he finishes second with Knutsen, Yongyan and Langeveld all behind him, then that's a big championship day for him. 20 points for second in the race versus 16 for third. And it's 13 points for Knutsen's 4th place as it stands. So if Jaap Van Lagen can outscore Knutsen by 7, that could be the difference maker when we return to Zandvoort in about 6 weeks' time. Porte Ruiz is not going to go down without a fight by any means, and Van Lagen, with the wise head on his shoulders, may as much as anything be thinking, okay, yes, I can get 4 extra points here, but let's not try and get them at the expense of actually seeing the checkered flag. But we've already seen this season that Jaap Van Lagen fighting for a championship can be uncompromising. We've got display aircraft overhead. But the real action show is going on through turn 1. Jaap Van Lagen looking a lot more comfortable at the wheel of the 69 car than Ruiz is at the wheel of the 22. Of course, now that Van Lagen is on the rear wing of Porte Ruiz, his lap times have slowed down somewhat, and Knutsen is starting to close in as well. And if Knutsen starts to preoccupy Jaap Van Lagen once again, he's going to be Frank Porte Ruiz's best mate for a few weeks at least. Because Porte Ruiz needs a reprieve from this pressure from Van Lagen right now. I'm hugely impressed by this rookie driver. Comfortably leading that rookie class, of course, but constantly fighting up in the overall sharp end as well. Speaking of the class battles in the Pro-Am class, Jules Grauw is again on great form, looking to make it his 4th win in 5 races in that 77 car. Currently leading Jani Kakala by 0.8 of a second. It looked like Van Lagen was a little bit compromised there at the apex, going through the sweeping Ramshoek left-hander. Just scrubbed a little bit more speed than he needed to, maybe just missed the apex a fraction, and it's these fine margins that allow Knutsen to drag himself back into consideration. Porte Ruiz with just a car length or so more than he had last time. But that's all it takes sometimes, to just be able to get yourself back on the ball, back in the zone. As it stands, if we were to put the checkered flag out now, Porte Ruiz would match his best result of the season. We saw him finish second in the first race at Hungary. He would gladly take another 20 points in the overall championship, and indeed another winner's trophy in the rookie class. There's your Pro-Am leader, Jules Grauw, who we mentioned a while ago. Looks like he's built himself a A little bit more of a gap over Kakela. They were split by less than a second. But now the Team Race Art driver is just distancing himself a little bit. Of course, a second-generation racer after his father, Roger Grau. His best ever finish in Carrera Cup Benelux in the overall classification, 8th position. He's not going to be in the top 10 today, but he continues to improve and learn. See the rest of the top 10 going across the line, and then Mace Muller there just ahead of Jules Grau at the moment. Muller running in 12th position. Ahead of him is Thomas Kangro. Max Schlickenmeyer rounds out the overall top 10, and he's also third among the rookie classification, although I believe it's in actuality second in the rookie classification, as Hjelte Höfner, to my knowledge, isn't scoring points. Alexandra, a few warning flags coming up here for track limit disrespect. The 65 car and the 32 I've seen getting warning flags, and the 56 machine of Alexandra Fateva has a 5-second time penalty. She is, of course, running 15th place without anyone nearby, so she won't lose time to that, but it's still a bit of a blow. This time by, we should be starting our penultimate lap of the race. Of course, we did have a marginally reduced race distance, but I think we're still getting the +1 lap, so this should be the penultimate lap that we start now. And Frank Porter Ruiz is going to have a very tricky pair of laps, I think, because Van Lagen has once again clawed his way to the rear of the number 22, less than 3/10 back at the line. Porter Ruiz there drifting out wide through that apex in a fashion that maybe makes me think he's used the best of his front Michelin tyres. And Van Lagen there set himself up very nicely for a good run down the back straight. Now, it is a chicane down at Ruskenhoek, but it's not a particularly tight chicane. It's not what I'd traditionally consider a great overtaking opportunity, but look at Van Lagen, goes full commitment and beyond. Cuts across the tarmac lake. He's not going to get it done there, but where can he get it done? That's the big question. Nick Coe controlling the race at the front, but who's going to follow him across the line? Who's going to be the second to receive the checkered flag? Porter Ruiz has been in control of that position, but Van Lagen on a late tear here. Robin Knudsen watching on in case there are any pieces to pick up later on. Through the final chicane comes the number 98. We should be going into the final lap this time. Yes, we are. There is the last lap board. And look at Van Lagen. He's had a good run out of the final chicane. He's going to try and make a move here into the first corner at Harbocht. But Porter Ruiz covers the inside line off. He might have compromised his run, though, through the apex. As they head towards Usserbrücken, it's an inside line beckoning for Jaap Van Lagen, but he's not going to be close enough. They're still going to be side by side all the way through the double apex. Van Lagen with a nose ahead. He squeezes out Porter Ruiz. They make contact, and Frank Porter Ruiz holds on by the skin of his teeth with a little bit of contact. And here comes Knudsen. Knudsen had a clear run through the corner. Porter Ruiz, though, still side by side. He's going to try and claim the inside line into the next chicane. He retains second. Van Lagen gets back through into third place. What happened to Knudsen there? I think he might have even just lifted out of it, deciding discretion is the better part of valour. I thought he was going to be in second. He's fourth. And now Van Lagen is under pressure from Robin Knudsen. Knudsen hasn't forgotten Hungary. Van Lagen, I think, is going to have to forget second place. He now needs to defend P3. Porter Ruiz looks like he's home free for that. But Jaap Van Lagen driving through the mirrors. Just a few corners left to go, and Knutsen has a very good run. We're going to have to try and keep an eye on that as well. But Nick Ho, with his moment in the sun here, it'll be his second claim of 25 points this season. But it's the first time that he's the first to see the checkered flag. Nick Ho is a race winner in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux. Frank Porter Ruiz comes across the line in second, and Jaap Van Lagen held on to third place. I think it might have got a bit close there between himself and Knutsen towards the end. Knutsen finishing fourth, Jong-Jan fifth, Langeveld in sixth, Höfner in seventh, Ryman back to eighth as he was yesterday. And there we see the flashing lights of Jules Grau, who comes across the line to win in Pro-Am. Alexandra Vateva there across the line. Car 47 with 10 seconds of penalty added owing to track limits violation. So I think Alexander Ryman is going to drop down as far as 12th place once that's reflected on the timing screen, unfortunately. But he does, officially speaking, finish in 8th. What an effort, though, from Nick Ho at the front of the field. Again, a rare second chance in motorsport after a poor start at the very beginning of the race. This was that moment at the start of that final lap between Porter Ruiz and Jaap Van Lagen. Porter Ruiz compromising his run through the first corner. Van Lagen getting to his inside, forcing him wide, and then trying to cut him off at the pass, going into the following left-hander, leaning on the Andorran's front bumper, both of them drifting a bit wide. Porter Ruiz getting himself back to second only momentarily, as we saw there some debris down, but also Knutsen getting a great run. But Knutsen not able to capitalise again. I was convinced he was going to be in second position after this moment, this collision as they both stray wide. Knutsen had a great run out of the turn, but maybe just not quite early enough on the power to fully capitalise. He had a nose ahead as they left shot, but by the time we got to the chicane at the end of the back straight, he was back to fourth place, Robin Knutsen. He'll be disappointed to have missed the podium. Of course, Jaap Van Lagen will profit here and grow his championship lead out to 12. Nick Ho, meanwhile, puts himself back into championship contention with a race win. A great effort from Nick Ho. Frank Porter Ruiz taking second ahead of Van Lagen. Knutsen in fourth. Sam Jong-Jan in fifth. Niels Langeveld in sixth. Hjelte Höfner in seventh place. Alexander Ryman eighth, but we understand he has a time penalty to be added. Nikola Milkovic in ninth. Max Schlickenmeyer taking 10th. A good run back from the rear of the grid for him. Thomas Kangro in 11th. Jules Grau in 12th. Mace Muller in 13th. 14th position for Jane Kakala. Alexandra Vateva in 15th. And after his moment of being stationary on the circuit, Henry Tuamala did finish the race in 16th place. And of course, we had two drivers not take start number 2. That would be Domas Raudenis, who was set to start from 4th today. A big shame that he couldn't take advantage of his starting position after the red flag incident that also involved Milan Marczak. Neither driver able to take the start in the second attempt at running this race. But what a banner day for Nick Ho. His first proper win in Carrera Cup Benelux. He scored 25 points for a second place finish behind guest driver Bertrand Baguette at Spa. And now he's crossed the line first for the first time in this series, and that will put him in good stead. We've got 4 races left to go this year in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux. The 12th to 14th of September, we will be at the Circuit Zolder. And then just 2 weeks after that, we head to Zandvoort for the season finale, our second visit to the home of the Dutch Grand Prix. And I, for one, cannot wait. I think we're in for a thrilling conclusion to the 2025 Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux season. And it will be Jaap van Lagen that leads those championship standings going into the final two events. Can he hold on and use that experience to his advantage? Join us next time at Zolder to see how this championship battle continues to unfold in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux.